A growing portion of the Northern Territory is going green. More than 12% of the territory is set aside for conservation, and the government thinks that will increase to 20% well before its target of 2030. Environmentalists say it falls short of what's needed, but the pastoral industry says the territory is already struggling to manage the protected areas it's got. Alison Middleton reports.
These scientists are in the middle of a 2-week treasure hunt.
Wow, look at that.
Don't do that. She's right in front of you. That's it. Hang on. She's in the attack position.
They're among 20 researchers who have travelled to Fish River Station, 150 kilometres south of Darwin, to take stock of the plants and animals that live on this remote property.
Oh, look at those fangs.
I've found 3 species of trapdoor spider, or 1 tarantula and a couple of trapdoors here. But there's got to be like about 8 in the area.
And what is this one again, Rob?
I believe that's Selenotholus fulcio.
People always forget that it's the little guys in our ecosystems that are so important. Normally when people do surveys, they focus very much on the vegetation, birds, mammals, but what is really important is those insects, the snails, the spiders, the butterflies, the true bugs, and all those things are what are the building blocks for an ecosystem.
Fish River Station is just one of hundreds of properties across Australia that are being surveyed under a scientific project called Bush Blitz. The 180,000 hectare property, which lies alongside the Daly River, is a treasure trove, home to an array of precious creatures.
Within it, it contains a range of ecosystems and habitats which are, in good condition. We found during surveys on the property there last year 16 species of native mammals, some of those which have been in extensive decline across the rest of northern Australia, such as the quoll, black-footed tree rat, the northern bandicoot.
The Bush Blitz scientific program is recording the animals and plants on land that's protected under the National Reserve System, a network of protected areas. These properties cover 12% of territory land and include Commonwealth and Territory-run national parks, Indigenous lands, privately managed reserves and sections of pastoral property.
Protected areas are the cornerstone of biodiversity conservation around the world. And the territory is known for its great wildlife and its great natural areas. That's why national parks and other types of protected areas should be central to our planning for the next 20 years.
That's a female scalloped grass yellow, so that's a male, that's a female.
So far, scientists have listed more than 600 new species on National Reserve land. They say it's important to know just what exists on places like Fish River Station so it can be properly protected.
So, and this is a little blue eye we found today on the property. It's sort of probably a new species that we found in the Daly River catchment. They're a group that occurs through Australia and New Guinea.
If we don't know what's there, we can't protect it. So for the managers of Fish River, for them to have a full species list that tells them this is what you have on your property, this is what we found, they can then develop management strategies to ensure that they conserve that. And that's what Fish River is all about.
In this hot heat, it'd be a good place to be is up in this tube up here.
Fish River Station was bought 2 years ago by the federal government, the Indigenous Land Corporation and 2 conservation groups for $13 million. The property is now in the hands of the Indigenous Land Corporation.
It's a large piece of relatively undeveloped land in the middle of an incredibly important catchment within the Northern Territory. The Daly catchment's, the Daly River's one of our iconic rivers, and the actual catchment itself is not particularly well reserved. So Fish River being a large parcel of land that hadn't been extensively cleared or developed meant that it was actually a very sensible choice for conservation.
SHAUN ANSELL manages Fish River Station with the help of Indigenous rangers. One of their first jobs has been to reduce the risk of bushfires.
Wildfire was one of the key problems. Fish River Station was one of the most intensively burnt blocks in the Northern Territory prior to 2010, with on average 66% of the property burning every single year in the 10 years before 2010. So one of our first acts was to get out there and to actually implement a program of strategic burning to bring that under control.
Environmentalists say they want to see more property set aside for conservation, particularly in the Barkly Tablelands and the Sturt Plateau.
Well, I think we should be also growing our protected area estate. I think we should be aiming to protect 1/3 of all of the lands in the territory by 2020.
While cattlemen agree that Fish River Station is an example of how the system can work well, they're worried about the management of other protected areas.
So this is really quite long.
Yeah.
We're seeing huge areas of the country locked up for conservation purposes at the moment, and in many instances those areas are not being managed properly. They are becoming havens for feral animals and weeds, etc.
Government is not going to be able to please everyone, but I think the current Northern Territory government has got the balance right. As I said, 16 million hectares now managed for conservation. That's tripled since we've come to government. We've also doubled the budget over the last 4 years for conservation of our land.
At Fish River Station, it's hoped controlled burning will provide a major source of income under the Carbon Farming Initiative. The plan is to sell credits by reducing the amount of carbon emitted from bushfires.
Well, we see our job on Fish River is not so much taking something out of production and locking it up, but rather bringing something back into production in terms of providing a valuable commodity to our economy, which is carbon credits.
In the meantime, Fish River Station is providing important scientific knowledge. These researchers have another week to survey the plants and animals. Over that time, they expect to make many more exciting discoveries.
We're actually making collections of things that haven't been collected before on Fish River Station. So by the end of this trip, we'll have a really, really thorough checklist for the area.
It's a very rich and diverse area with limestone cliffs and lovely rainforest gorges and monsoon rainforest and this sort of thing. So it's an amazing and diverse place.
Alison Middleton reporting.